Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show of I Am Christina DiArcangelo. I hope everyone's well today, staying warm as we're in the middle of February. And depending upon where you're located in the world, it could be cold. It's cold here in Philly. Today, I have my guest from across the pond in the UK, Aleksandra. Would you please introduce yourself to everyone? And thank you again for agreeing to be on my podcast today.
Great pleasure, Christina. It is an honor to share space with you today. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Aleksandra Filipovic, and I am based in London, UK. It is wet and cold here as well. So we are all in the middle of February weathering it out. I am by profession a medical oncologist, a clinician, and I also work in drug development, leading preclinical and clinical development of oncology drugs. That is by profession. And by calling, I'm really here to facilitate healing of those people who are guided to come to me. And I aim and have the intention to do that with them and for them through my medical knowledge in combination with words, breath, movement, silence, and meditation.
You know, when I first met you, we were both speaking at an event in the UK at the end of the year. And I was so impressed with you because it's very rare that you meet an oncologist, and I've worked with lots of them through my drug development career, that is like you. You are very unique. I love your approach to healing mind, body, and soul, both coupled with pharmaceuticals as well as doing mindful practices, performing mindful practices, because it's a rarity, in my opinion, to meet someone like you that is intentionally here on this earth to make people connect with everything so that they can truly feel better. So I just wanted to make sure that I kind of like dovetailed back into that, because I want the viewers and the listeners to kind of get that from the beginning, so that way it kind of sets the stage, because you are very unique. I have other doctors on my show from time to time, and every time I do, it's because they have a unique perspective that they bring to patient care, that they holistically truly care about their patients. It's not just about making a paycheck.
Well, Christina, first of all, thank you for that reflection. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I have gone through my own personal journey to get here, and to now really feel in my integrity and responsibility and ability to hold that space for others. And I have learned from beautiful individuals, teachers, some of whom are physicians and some aren't, who also have really paved this way for now our generations to hopefully carry this forward and to expand it further in our medical profession and just in life in general, because it always starts with you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And especially being an oncologist, because, you know, when you're diagnosed with different types of medical issues, this is my opinion, just from watching, you know, my father for 22 years battle cancer, and then a multitude of other family members. It was one of the reasons why I got into the biotech industry, you know, in my early 20s. But when somebody is diagnosed with cancer, every person that I've ever talked to, whether it was through my nonprofit or just in general, people I know, friends, family, whatever, they're always afraid of dying. Other, you know, types of illnesses that people have, I don't see them presenting that worry unless it's really chronic, like MS or ALS or something like that. Like I have 2 autoimmune diseases, and I don't worry about dying with my autoimmune diseases because every day I work to make sure I keep myself on track. And I'm in a different headspace. But cancer patients, would you agree or disagree with that statement?
I do agree with that statement. And I think there is, as much as we have seen a paradigm shift in the ways that we diagnose and treat patients and are even able to potentially intervene in a prophylactic preventative setting, I believe that we will slowly get to the point where the paradigm of how one perceives a cancer diagnosis also begins to shift. And the reason I say that is just looking at how much we have available to us in the oncology community right now, it is really a different world of, interventions and the medicines that we have available, and cancers that were unimaginable to be treatable 10 years ago are now very treatable, and patients can live very long lives with a very good quality of life. So there is tremendous progress that has happened in that arena. And I think it's only a matter of time before the perception around cancer as the death sentence also shifts dramatically. Now, I can relate to what you said about autoimmune disease as well, because in 2016, I got a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. And I also wasn't scared of dying from it. That said, it did make me reevaluate my entire life and really ask the question, well, is there a reason why this happened? And if there is a reason, then this condition came with a message. And how can I make sure that I get into the frame of mind and body to be able to hear and interpret that message, and then to rightfully take action towards just really improving my health and overall well-being. And that was one of the events that happened for me. There were many other events that ultimately paved the way into and through my personal healing journey. And when I say healing journey, I don't mean just medically. I also mean mind, body, soul. And really, it was a journey of remembering who I am, what it is that I'm here for, remembering to give myself permission to be and to breathe and to express. And that ultimately got me to realize that oftentimes the diagnosis of ailments, various different kinds, physical or mental or both, that we get presented to us are oftentimes, in addition to other causes that I'm not disputing by any means, but often hold a very important message and often represent unexpressed emotions, pent-up energy that just hasn't moved through the body throughout our lifetime.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like healing generational issues, right?
It really is. Yeah. You know what? I think it inevitably sort of gets you there at one point in the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this discussion with my sister. It was 2 weekends ago. I've been trying to, from a self-love, self-care perspective, I stay in a hotel once a month where basically all I do is rest without my child. I have a really, really awesome sitter who, she's not just a sitter, she really is Christian's mentor and a part of our family. I consider her like a niece. And she works for Avum Spectral, Affinity Bio. I mean, she works for all the companies as well. She's a brilliant, brilliant person. But I had gone away 2 Saturdays ago, which I really needed, because after like the death of my brother and everything that came to the surface from our family stuff that was kind of not, it just all comes to the surface. It's what happens when people die. I was talking to my sister about this topic, about the fact that we have generational healing that she and I have to do. I mean, I've started the process. As you know, we've had conversations, before this podcast. We're colleagues and friends. So you know this, but I don't think, everybody that's listening does, is that I've intentionally sought out to try and heal some of the things that have happened from my childhood forward. And it's not a fun endeavor, let me tell you. But I feel now, coming on the other side of it, I'm very appreciative of it. So I feel like now it's our jobs, once we've identified that, to make it better, right? At least for our family members that are down below, that are coming up, because they're going to rise up as we, come out, right? And we're just, old and sitting on our porches or whatever the hell we're doing. So I think it's important to recognize that for everybody who's coming up, in the industries that they work in, and just as people in general, humans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And first of all, I just want to say, I'm holding a lot of space and compassion for what you and your family have gone through recently. It definitely isn't easy, and is often an invitation that you yourself have taken to go deeper and to do that healing work. And inevitably, we touch upon and often go very, very deep into ancestral healing and generational healing, multiple lineages of our own family, because I think it's inevitable when most of us look back and trace things back, we will, if we're willing to see it, notice familial patterns. And for myself, I grew up in a family where there was a lot of codependency, a lot of enmeshment, people pleasing, lack of healthy boundaries. And that created my expression in the world. And I was wearing a lot of masks, a workaholic mask, a perfectionist child, a people pleaser, a martyr mask. There were all these different masks that I had, and one by one they sort of went as my healing journey happened and continues. But maybe I'll just round this back into our conversation around oncology, for example, and I'll give you a live example from my own clinic, where nowadays, because I'm training in a beautiful process, which is called the Whole Health Medicine Institute, and really teaches you as a medical worker to incorporate trauma-informed healing into any practice that you do with your patients or clients. And implementing that approach into my clinical work now, what happened in one of my clinics with a patient who was very understandably very, very anxious and just very concerned about her treatment, her outcome. I offered to facilitate a little short process in the clinic for her and with her, where I just asked her to close her eyes for a moment, which she was receptive to, because you never do this forced. It has to be just an invitation. And then if there is receptivity, then we can proceed forward. So she was very much willing to try, and she closed her eyes. My question to her was, have you ever truly believed that anything that we have been giving you as treatment is going to work? And that in her first brought up a moment of silence, which we honored. And then she said, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I said, okay, tell me more about that. And then we got to a very important point for her, which was, well, my mother died 30 years ago of breast cancer. And that is something that in a process and in a method called internal family systems, which I'm also training in, it's a beautiful method developed by Richard Schwartz, you call a trailhead. So it is this moment where you grab onto that trailhead because it'll lead you to something that is very, very informative and that can really facilitate a shift for that person. And I said, okay, and what happened then? Well, it was 30 years ago. There were no treatments. She died. And I watched it all. And said, okay. So she still had her eyes closed. And I said, could it be that there is a part of you that feels guilty now? That it is 2021, this was last year. And now medicine has moved so far, and there are all these treatments available for you, and you can live. And this really just opened up a lot. There were tears, there was a lot of release, and there was a lot of shedding of the anxiety that used to be present before. And I don't want to speak to her about her experience, but I can comment on what I witnessed her in. And from where I was sitting at the time, it did feel like a significant shift and an awareness of, oh my God, I can go there. I can give myself permission to live because my mother would have wanted me to live. Mm-hmm. But we do carry a lot from from generations, and it's not their fault. This process is never about casting blame because it's not about right and wrong. It's about awareness that, and it's not about comparison. That's actually really about a perspective, because a comparison has only two viewpoints, and a perspective allows for multiple viewpoints to exist simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And so here it's not about right and wrong. It's not easy to get to that point. And I'm not going to say it's fast, but it can be. It can be. It's about acknowledging that they did the best that they could with what they had at the time. And so are you in every given moment. So my welcome, when the patient comes, is all of you is welcome. All of you, with all of your feelings, with everything that is presenting today and every day, all of you is welcome. And so how do we live that way, really? How do they come out of an oncology appointment with just a little bit more than just a prescription and a blood test and a scan?
Right. They leave you with hope. One of the things that I wanted to mention that I've observed, now I haven't known you forever, but I can tell you based on the various interactions we've had, like we spoke globally, like this at a big conference together. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I identify with you, the first thing that pops up in my mind when I think of you as a human is you're trustworthy. You're a trustworthy person. So for me, I don't have cancer, but if I would come to you for, something, say you were, some other kind of physician, I would trust you. So you develop that trust with your patients from the beginning because you accept them for where they are today, where they're coming from with all their baggage and preconceived notions and family stuff that comes up, because when people have cancer, it's a strain on the entire family ecosystem. It's just not just the patient. And so you also, which you haven't mentioned yet, is that you also help the caregivers with these people, because that person in particular that you were talking about, because you and I had spoken before the podcast about this podcast, and we were talking about preparing, you mentioned the husband and how much it helped the relationship with her husband. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very, very beautiful to observe. And in these moments, and I'm going to digress and come back very quickly, because it's not about, oftentimes when you're in a position of a doctor and thankfully, we don't wear white coats here anymore.
Mm.
Not that I have anything against them, but we don't. And it sort of it grounds you because we're all the same. We're just all the same. The fact that I'm sitting in the other chair makes no difference. And it's not about me fixing them because they're not broken.
Right.
It is also not about me helping them
because
then I'm here and they're here. But it's about service.
Right.
Service brings you here, right? Service brings, we're equal, we're the same, we all have the same problems. And with this, all of you is welcome. It is the patient, but it's also their system, in this case, her husband. And it really is just so beautiful to see that moment where there is a transformation, and it's palpable. That energy is really palpable, because how it manifested in the moment was just physical contact between the two of them that never happened before in our clinic. She just reached for her husband's hand, but there was just an ease of showing up and talking and asking questions and saying their opinions and their views, and doing that in front of a doctor. And why not? Because we're all human. So it does have a ripple effect.
I just love that. And I also love the fact that you talked about service, because for me too, that's something that's really important. I feel like I'm here on this earth to serve people in whatever capacity that is. If that means I show up and I'm doing something that's tech oriented and I'm working with Canabot or DrBot or, whatever, right? Collecting data. Or if I'm designing a study, where I'm trying to find certain therapeutic endpoints purposely so that I can find things to really help these patients, because I don't just look at the underlying, I don't look at just the disease state. I look at everything behind it, just like you mentioned about trying to heal the mind, the body, and the soul. As a researcher, that's what I look into when I'm trying to figure out certain things, to pull certain data points from a secondary standpoint. I'm here to serve people. That's why I'm on this earth. And I love that you said that, because again, it's not often that you hear a physician saying, I'm here to serve my patients. I'm here for them. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff going on with healthcare. You've got to worry about billing and all this stuff. You guys have a lot of pressure besides practicing. You've got a lot of stuff that people don't think about because they're not exposed to it, or because they don't know what they don't know.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I agree with everything you said. And what we're talking about here now is this beautiful aspect of how can we bring in more healing. And then there's all the other practical stuff that happens in the background that we do deal with, and that it comes with the territory and it comes with the job description. And but the rewards are just so powerful and override anything that you have to go through in order to ultimately just be able to show up, really, and to channel that truth through you, through oneself as you're serving others. And I know it's oftentimes many of these things are not easy to hear, but there's this beautiful Rumi quote that's probably one of my favorite quotes that says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And I know it's very, very hard. And there's a lot to be said about timing, of when do you introduce these options and offerings to a patient who is on a cancer journey. There's a lot to be said about timing and meeting that person where they're at. And I'll give you another real example here. Many of these practices will involve closing one's eyes, to drop in from here to here, because our bodies know, they've always known. It's not all we need to do. It's, again, easier said than done, but it is a practice, and it is a commitment, and it is self-love. But just closing our eyes and dropping from here to here, to here, even if it's for a minute, it doesn't matter. If it's just for a minute, those minutes will add up, and you don't have to hear anything for, days or weeks on end. And then one day you will hear and you will know what it's like. And then you can't unhear or unfeel or unsee what you've heard, felt, and seen, right? It's there with you. Yours. It's not mine. It's always
That's right.
yours. And an example is that one of my patients simply cannot close her eyes. There is so much trauma there from before that she cannot close her eyes. But there's no forcing this.
Right.
There's no forcing this. This is a process, and it is never about the person facilitating it. It is always about the patient, and only about the patient.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of these lessons, that you've learned, that you're sharing with us, that I'm learning with you based on your work. And I appreciate your vulnerability talking about things like this, because it's not every day we get to talk like this, like you and I get to, but not every day does that happen. So I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. And I definitely want to have you on again as you do some more of your good work that you're doing. I just think I'm so happy to have you on the month of February, because, in my opinion, that's the month of love. It's Black History Month, it's Valentine's Day, it's President's Day for us, but also my son's birthday is the 24th, he turns 9. So for me, this is the month of love. So I'm so happy to have had you on the month of love to talk about really loving yourself and loving of others. I think that's a huge lesson that people, don't be afraid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much. It's an honor. It would be an honor to come back again and talk to you. And thank you for this space that you create and the people and topics that you bring forth, because it's incredibly important to just open up the conversation. And it's that moment of just cracking the door open for a little bit of light to come through, and then all it can do is shine.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. What a great way to end the show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Truly. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And as we always say when we wrap up, remember, and you've already kind of said that today, is we are the same. I am Christina DiArcangelo.